Princess Charlotte didn't know what the noise was at first. The revving, the circling, the way 6 blacked-out bikers rolled through the royal gate without clearance, surrounding her like it was planned. Because it was. Camilla sent them to humble her, to frighten her, to show her that the world wouldn't always bow. But what started as a lesson turned into a hunt. The engines closed in. The wheels spun gravel at her feet. And one of them came inches from striking her, until a royal guard stepped in. No command, no orders, just instinct. He took the impact, shielded her with his own body, and when she couldn't breathe through the panic, Camilla called it overreaction. But the guard, he called it what it was, and then told her in front of everyone, "You don't go near her again, not today, not ever." Now, before we show you the exact moment, a royal guard stopped an attack that could have killed the future queen. Drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. Tap like, hit subscribe, and turn on the bell icon. Because what happened in that courtyard wasn't rebellion, it was restraint. And the man who showed it didn't wait for permission. The morning at Windsor moved like clockwork, quiet, restrained, familiar. A light April breeze threaded through the eastern courtyard, brushing the ivy-laced stone walls and catching at the tails of the Union flag above the private arch. Somewhere beyond the hedgerows, a steward wheeled a breakfast cart along the polished path, its rubber tyres squeaking faintly. The world here ran on a slower, tighter rhythm. 10-year-old Princess Charlotte walked with her usual small satchel pressed to her side, filled with field notes and laminated tracking guides. Her cheeks were pink from the breeze, and her braid had started to unravel at the edge. She didn't mind. Her aide, a former prep school tutor turned Royal Education liaison, walked beside her, offering quiet reminders about today's conservation module, migratory patterns, native habitats, and the difference between falcons and kestrels. Charlotte listened, but her eyes darted toward the garden fences every few steps. She liked spotting the rabbits before anyone else did. Trailing precisely 10 paces behind was Sergeant Rowan Merrick. He was taller than most Coldstream guards, leaner than some, and sharper than nearly all. The ceremonial red wool tunic hung neatly from his frame, buttons glinting in the soft light, white belt cinched just right. His bearskin hat swayed faintly as he walked. One gloved hand rested over the strap of his rifle, the other stayed relaxed but aware at his side. Even off duty, Rowan gave the impression of someone who knew what direction wind would blow before the trees did. He liked this post. Morning shift, midweek, light traffic. Charlotte had a routine. No drama, no fuss. That's what made him notice when something wasn't quite right. It was faint at first, not enough to say anything. Just a low, mechanical murmur, like a wasp with a clogged throat. The sound drifted in from somewhere past the South Service Road, swallowed quickly by hedges and brick. Rowan turned his head slightly, the tilt imperceptible to anyone watching. His ears were trained for disruption, and this didn't belong. The noise came again. A sputter of revving, thin and jerky. Definitely an engine, but not the smooth kind from palace maintenance carts or delivery fleets. This was rougher, intentionally loud, too fast for royal ground limits. The aide didn't hear it. Charlotte definitely didn't, but Rowan did. A ground steward jogged past from the west corridor, arms full of laminated signs for a weekend event. As he passed, he called out casually, "Weird one this morning. Someone reported motorcycle noise near the old service lane. Probably kids outside the perimeter. Sound travel's funny this time of day." Rowan nodded but said nothing. His pace never faltered. His eyes, however, shifted again toward the southeast line of trees where the sound had disappeared. Tourists didn't get that close, not without triggering at least 3 layers of clearance. He filed the noise away quietly. But he didn't forget it. The route should have been simple. From the East Conservatory steps to the lower gardens, there was a direct path that Princess Charlotte used nearly every week. But today, halfway down the walk, a steward in gardening fatigues stepped into their lane, hands apologetic. Forgive the redirection, ma'am. Mulch deliveries blocked the main route. May I suggest the training stable loop? Only an extra minute or two." The aide smiled, nodded, and gently turned Charlotte toward the alternate corridor, a less used flagstone path that curved behind the old equestrian yard. To most, it was just another quiet turn in the Windsor estate. But to Sergeant Rowan Merrick, something about it felt off, too exposed, no posted personnel. The hedgerows were taller here, and the far end met the edge of the south service lane, the same area where that strange engine noise had come from earlier. Rowan didn't stop them, not yet, but his hand shifted slightly on his rifle strap. They turned the bend, and there they were, 3 motorcycles, parked just beyond the low iron gate that separated the training path from the south lane. Not brand new showroom bikes. These were lived-in, loud-bodied, oil-speckled machines with oversized exhausts and matte black paint. The men on them didn't belong. No Royal Fleet insignia, no escort credentials. Civilian clothes, rugged jackets, visored helmets, one of them wearing a Union Jack patch ironed on crooked. Engines idled low, the occasional rev popping into the air like a cough held too long. A junior steward from the outer wing was already approaching them, nervous, polite, hands out. "Gents, I'm afraid this isn't a public—" The lead biker raised a hand, interrupting. "We're just sightseeing," he said. The tone was casual, almost amused. Rowan stepped forward without hesitation, boots cutting clean over stone. "This path is restricted access," he said, voice even. "Move along." There was no aggression in his tone, but there was no softness either. The biker closest to the gate lifted his visor halfway. The lower half of his face was scruffy, sun-worn. His smirk was slow. "Relax, soldier boy. We're just paying our respects." His eyes flicked past Rowan, past the aide, and landed on Charlotte. She stepped back, just a fraction, enough to shift the satchel on her shoulder. Rowan shifted with her, placing himself subtly between the girl and the motorcycle. His stance was unchanged, but his entire posture had tightened. One of the bikers gave his throttle a teasing twist, short, just enough to spike the rev. Another followed suit. Taunting, not overt. They didn't move until Rowan took a deliberate step forward. Then, finally, the engines growled louder. The bikes rolled in lazy arcs, and the men began to leave, but not directly. They circled once, a full loop of the service lane, just slow enough to get a better look. Then they disappeared through the rear trees, and Rowan's gut locked tight. That wasn't curiosity. That was reconnaissance. Rowan didn't like how the steward's voice shook when he called it in. He kept his report crisp. Location, number of men, behaviour, direction of departure. Nothing emotional, nothing interpretive. But the steward's eyes widened anyway, and before Rowan could rein him in, the man whispered, "Her Majesty is in the south wing. She should be informed." She didn't need to be. But the palace had its own hierarchy, and before Rowan could advise otherwise, the steward hurried around the corner. A moment later, soft footfalls approached. Measured, brisk, unmistakably self-assured. Queen Camilla rounded the stable archway with a gloved hand, smoothing the front of her coat, expression already set in that semi-irritated posture she carried when summoned to anything she deemed beneath her rank. "What is this fuss about?" she asked. The steward bowed halfway. "Your Majesty." A small group of motorcyclists was spotted near the service lane. They lingered just beyond the restricted— "Oh, for heaven's sake!" Camilla said, waving a dismissive hand. "A few bikers rattling their toys. Hardly a crisis." Rowan remained at attention, silent, but Camilla noticed him anyway. "And you," she said, "the guard always looks ready for war when a pigeon sneezes." The steward shot Rowan an apologetic glance. Rowan kept his tone level. "Ma'am," the individuals approached within visible distance of the princess. Their behaviour suggested intent to observe. They also— Camilla cut him off. "Perhaps the princess should learn not everyone in Britain will bow to her." Charlotte stiffened. Not dramatically, but visibly enough for Rowan to catch it. The aide swallowed, startled. "Ma'am, the men were circling." "Yes, yes," Camilla said impatiently. "Where are they now?" Rowan's jaw flexed, but he answered. They departed south, slowly. They circled before leaving. Camilla's expression changed, not worried. Amused. Then she said something so casually, so flippantly, Rowan almost wondered if he'd misheard. A little harmless bravado keeps the future monarch grounded. The aide froze. Charlotte looked up, brows knitting in confusion and hurt. Rowan felt his shoulders lock into place. Camilla noticed none of it. She stepped closer, lowering her voice as if sharing a joke among colleagues. "They're meant to circle back. She'll be just fine. It's character building." Rowan's posture changed entirely. Small shift, but unmistakable. The kind that precedes action. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "if unvetted individuals were invited into proximity of the princess, even for optics, it constitutes a breach of protective protocol." Camilla rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. They're only bikers, not assassins." But Rowan's instincts were already burning, and Charlotte, standing just behind him, clutched her satchel a little tighter. It started with the sound again, low at first, throaty engines rising from the South Service lane, but this time they weren't idling, they were moving. Rowan heard them seconds before they came into view. He'd been watching the horizon, posture upright but tense, as Charlotte and her aide stepped into the outer courtyard beyond the greenhouse arches. Sunlight glinted off the flagstones. The quiet had returned, for a moment. Then came the first roar, then a second, then 5. The same 3 bikers from before returned, only now they weren't alone. 2 more rode in behind them, their jackets stiff with road dust, engines snarling with manufactured bravado. The gang pulled into formation with no hesitation, circling the outer courtyard in a slow, deliberate loop. One of them revved hard enough to echo between the old brick walls. Charlotte flinched visibly, her satchel slipping off her shoulder. Her aide reached for her arm instinctively. The lead biker popped his visor. "Come say hello, little princess." His voice was bright, mocking, just loud enough to carry. Rowan's voice cracked through the air like a rifle bolt. "This is your final warning," he said. "Disperse immediately." The bikers didn't even slow. Instead, they broke into a loose V formation, weaving around planters, gravel crunching under their tires, circling just tight enough to send dust skimming the cobblestones. They weren't trying to strike, not yet, but they were making themselves felt, loud, erratic, unpredictable. Charlotte's shoulders hunched in. Her steps halted entirely. She looked at her aide with wide, panicked eyes. From the western patio, Queen Camilla stood watching, arms crossed, mouth tight with amusement. Not alarm, not disbelief, just a cool detachment, like someone watching a film scene play out exactly as scripted. One biker popped his clutch and let the engine growl, its echo bouncing between stone columns. Charlotte winced. The aide tried to guide her backward toward the conservatory. But as they turned, one of the bikers peeled away from the group and blocked their path. Not close, not illegal, but too close for a child. Rowan's body moved before his voice did. He stepped forward, eyes locked, one hand lifting with mechanical precision. "Stop your vehicle! Now!" The biker stared at him through his tinted visor, then gave a smug tilt of the handlebars. The engine lowered to a purr. He didn't leave, not yet, but Rowan knew the pattern. Knew the circling instinct of cowards pretending to be wolves. This wasn't random, this was planned, and it wasn't over. The moment the 6th motorcycle arrived, Rowan's entire posture changed. It came from behind, sliding quietly through the lower rear gate, where deliveries sometimes entered for events. There should have been a steward posted there. Someone had pulled them off, or never sent one in the first place. The biker didn't rev his engine. He just rolled in slow, closing the last escape route. Charlotte noticed before anyone else. Her breath caught. She turned to the aide, voice barely a whisper. "Can we go back now?" Rowan didn't answer. His eyes scanned each engine, each hand, each gloved twitch of throttle. He could feel their perimeter tightening, not as a coordinated attack, but as a performance, a rehearsal of intimidation. One step closer to a mistake someone wouldn't be able to undo. The circle began to close. Engines revved again, this time in chorus. The sound bounced off the stone, sharp enough to rattle the wrought iron lanterns. One biker leaned slightly off his seat, adjusting something in his jacket. Rowan moved forward half a step. It wasn't a weapon, just a phone. The biker raised it. Lens pointed straight at Charlotte. "Smile for the camera, sweetheart!" Rowan's body blocked the frame instantly, moving so fast the biker flinched backward. Another biker laughed behind the visor, and then, just for flair, he kicked the throttle. His rear wheel spun hard into the gravel, throwing a loose spray of stone chips across the path. One of them struck Charlotte's leg. She gasped. Not loud, not theatrical, just a sharp, involuntary sound of pain and panic. She stumbled backward into the aid, her face crumpling. Rowan's voice dropped an octave. It wasn't ceremonial anymore. "Engines off," he commanded. "All of you. Hands visible. Now." The bikers hesitated. One laughed. Another revved in challenge. The leader rolled his bike forward half a metre, chest puffed, grin smug. That was a mistake. Rowan moved like a trigger pull. His boots dug in, stride tight, motion smooth. He reached the lead biker's handlebar, yanked the throttle hand upward with controlled force, and twisted the ignition key to kill the engine. The bike choked out mid-rever. The biker jolted in disbelief, jerking his arm away like a petulant child caught mid-prank. "Don't touch my—" Rowan didn't reply. His eyes never left him. The others reacted instantly. Engines roared to life again in protest. One biker spun in a tight circle. Another stood from his seat, arms raised, like he might rush. Charlotte cried out now, not words, just fear. Her aide shielded her body, but it was Rowan she clung to, gripping the side of his uniform like a lifeline. The circle closed. And for the first time, Rowan felt them abandon the performance. Now it was about escalation. They didn't charge like soldiers. They charged like fools. Two of the bikers peeled from the loose ring, engines growling, wheels spinning just enough to make noise, not enough for control. They surged forward toward Rowan and Charlotte, not full speed, but fast enough to make someone flinch, fast enough to hurt, fast enough to terrify a child. Charlotte froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Her hands didn't move. Her satchel dropped. One foot slid back across the stone, but her body stayed locked in place, paralyzed by the engine's scream. Rowan didn't shout. He moved. He stepped in front of her with absolute clarity, grabbed her shoulder with one firm hand, and pulled her behind the nearest marble pillar, turning his back to the oncoming bikers, using his own body as the barrier. The first biker swerved too late. His handlebars clipped Rowan's shoulder hard, metal against bone. Rowan staggered but didn't fall. He spun slightly with the force, absorbing it through the same side that had taken shrapnel in Lashkar years before. He let the pain come, didn't show it. The second biker fish-tailed near them, tires screeching. His back wheel skidded across the gravel and slammed into the edge of the stone plinth, a sharp, metallic grind. Charlotte flinched again and curled tighter behind Rowan's back. He dropped to one knee beside her, steadying her with both gloved hands. Her breaths were short, ragged, sharp, hyperventilation. She wasn't crying, she was gasping. "Look at me," he said, calm but firm. Her eyes flicked to his. "You're all right. I've got you. Keep your eyes on me. Count 1, 2. Slow." She tried, but her chest wouldn't obey. Her throat tightened. Her fingers clawed into the red wool of his uniform sleeve. "Princess Charlotte," he said again, grounding her in her title. "You are not alone. I am between you and everything else." Her lip trembled, and then from across the courtyard came the voice that cut through it all like vinegar poured over an open wound. "Enough theatrics!" Camilla's tone rang out sharp and disapproving, as if they were delaying her luncheon. "They're children playing at rebellion," she added. Charlotte turned her face into Rowan's shoulder, eyes squeezed shut. He rose, slowly. His shoulder pulsed. His ribs ached, but he stood tall, square, the full height of his uniform regaining its dominance over the courtyard. He looked once toward the group of bikers, now circling again, then toward Camilla, and with his voice low and steady, he spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. They nearly struck the princess. And I will not let it happen again. He didn't wait for permission. Sergeant Rowan Merrick turned from the revving circle, from the shrieking tires and snarling pipes, and began walking toward Queen Camilla with the full authority of a man who knew what duty looked like when it mattered most. Charlotte stayed behind him, partially hidden by the aide, still trembling, still breathless, but even through the noise, her fingers never let go of the corner of his coat. Camilla stood at the edge of the stone terrace, arms folded across her black gloves, like a woman supervising a misunderstanding. Her eyes were sharp, but unmoved. Her heels hadn't shifted an inch. "You're embarrassing yourself," she said as Rowan approached. "They were instructed only to intimidate her a little, that's all." The aide gasped. Rowan didn't blink. "You sent them?" he said. Camilla gave a slow, unapologetic nod. A little humbling never hurt anyone. She needs to toughen up if she's going to wear a crown someday. Behind him, Charlotte began to cry, quietly this time. No sobs, just breathless, broken exhales, the kind that make a mother's stomach drop before she even sees her child. Rowan took another step forward. He was now directly between Camilla and the girl. Camilla's expression shifted, voice turning sharp. "You forget your place." Rowan didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "My place," he said, "is exactly here, protecting a child from people you invited to frighten her." Camilla's eyes widened, not in fear, but insult. She drew herself taller, but it meant nothing. His presence made hers smaller, not the other way around. The sound of motorcycle engines grew erratic now, some still revving, some hesitating, unsure. One biker had turned his machine slightly to face the gate, as if preparing to leave. Another dismounted entirely, pacing in the corner, realizing the temperature of the courtyard had changed. A steward stood frozen near the hedges. 2 footmen at the west gate had stopped mid-step. The whole palace felt like it was holding its breath. "You will step aside," Camilla hissed. Rowan's voice was ice. "No! You are blocking a senior royal. I'm shielding a child." Camilla's gloved hand twitched at her side. "You'll be reprimanded for this, stripped of duty." "You're welcome to try." He didn't move, didn't flinch. Behind him, Charlotte looked up. Her breathing was still uneven, but something in her posture began to change, less folded, more focused. The aide didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Because for the first time in that courtyard, the line had been drawn. And it wasn't ceremonial, it was human. The sound of footsteps broke the stillness, fast, deliberate, striking sharp across the stone. It wasn't security, it wasn't staff, it was Prince William. He came through the east arch with 2 palace aides, struggling to keep pace, his long coat flaring behind him, his stride clipped, surgical. His eyes scanned the courtyard once, only once, and then he stopped moving. He saw Charlotte. She was still pressed against the aide's side, face tear-streaked, hands gripping the edge of her satchel like it might float her out of this moment. Her chest was still rising and falling too fast. But more than that, he saw Rowan standing squarely between her and Camilla, upright, unmoving. And then he saw the bikers, the engines, the chaos, the complete absence of control. His voice cut through the courtyard like a blade. "What on earth? Who are they?" Camilla stepped forward as if she were hosting a tea garden. "William, don't overreact. They were just—" Rowan spoke over her without apology. A gang of unvetted motorcyclists were allowed into the lower courtyard, under Her Majesty's instruction, he said. They circled the princess and attempted to record her without authorization, and twice made physical contact, once with me, once with the child's proximity. William didn't blink. He turned to Camilla, voice dropping low. "Did you authorize this?" Camilla hesitated. "It was harmless. Demonstration of resilience. She'll be queen one day, William. She needs backbone." "You sent bikers," he said, his voice like ice on steel, "to humble a 10-year-old girl." Camilla opened her mouth again, but the words never landed, because in the same instant William raised his hand and security flooded the courtyard. 3 guards from the inner perimeter, 2 unarmed escorts, and 1 senior logistics officer moved as one. They surrounded the bikers without hesitation, pulled ignition keys from every running bike, and began recording license plates and faces. One biker tried to object. He was ignored. Another put his hands up and stepped back. William didn't flinch. "Remove them," he said to the lead guard. "All of them. Full identification. Hold them at gate 3 until I say otherwise." A steward near the fountain whispered into a radio. A far gate opened. The roar of bikes gave way to silence as one by one the men were ushered out under watch. The gang looked stunned, like actors in the wrong scene, realizing the script had turned. Camilla turned toward William. "You're overreacting. This was a minor optics." He turned his back on her and walked straight to his daughter. Charlotte didn't cry now. She just looked up, quiet and shaken. And in that single glance between father and child, the damage was done. Queen Camilla did not speak again. Not to William, not to Rowan, not to Charlotte. She stood at the edge of the courtyard, arms still crossed, watching as the last motorcycle was pushed, engine dead, through the rear gate by palace security. 2 stewards approached her at a respectful distance, one with a radio still clipped to his shoulder, the other holding a folded security file. "Her Majesty will be escorted back to the North Wing," one of them said. She looked at them as if they'd spoken a different language. But she didn't refuse. She walked away with long, clipped steps, heels sharp against stone, coat swinging behind her, no entourage, no apology, and no control. William stayed behind. He knelt beside Charlotte, brushing a loose strand of hair from her temple. "You're all right now. It's over." She didn't answer right away. She just nodded, twice, then leaned forward to press her forehead to his shoulder. Catherine arrived moments later, flanked by a single private aide. She didn't speak to anyone, didn't glance toward the chaos. She walked straight to her daughter, dropped to her knees beside them both, and wrapped her arms around Charlotte without a word. The girl finally let out a breath, not a sob, just the air she'd been holding for far too long. William rose slowly and turned to Rowan. "Your name, Sergeant?" "Rowan Merrick, sir. Coldstream Guard. You'll file a full incident report before end of day. I want the steward notes, camera feeds, and medical review cross-referenced. Nothing omitted." "Yes, sir." "Understood?" "Every word of it, sir." William studied him for a long moment. "You didn't hesitate." "No, sir." "And you stood between my daughter and the people who frightened her." "That's the oath," Rowan replied simply. William gave a single nod. No medal. No pageantry. But it landed heavier than either. Rowan's shoulder was bruised. A faint tear in the wool seam marked where the handlebar had clipped him. He declined a stretcher, declined seated rest, declined anything more than a quiet moment against the pillar once the courtyard cleared. He remained standing, because he hadn't seen her safe yet. Eventually Charlotte returned, this time flanked by both parents and a royal physician walking a pace behind. Her eyes were tired, her grip on her mother's coat still firm, but she was no longer shaking. They passed Rowan without ceremony, but Charlotte paused. She turned her head, looked up at him, really looked. No smile, no curtsy, just a single steady gaze. And then, quietly, she gave the faintest nod. Rowan returned it with a slow one of his own. 2 people who now understood something the others didn't, and never needed to say out loud, "Do you think the Royal Guard was right to defy Camilla's orders in public? Should Prince William have removed her from palace grounds immediately? And what would you have done if you saw a child being circled like that?" Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. Tap the like button if you believe duty should always come before optics. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell icon, and share this video with someone who still thinks bravery is about medals. And while you're here, choose one of the other Royal Guard stories now appearing on your screen. We'll see you tomorrow, same time. same place, with a brand new story.